on things are going to change. But if your essential philosophy stays the same, the way it did with Ronald Reagan, the way it did with our great presidents, that's what leadership is about.
Governor Huckabee?
Well, Charlie, I think the question the president was asking was not as much about our policies, because those can change with each generation, with each year, with each circumstances, but the principles. What is it that's deep inside of us that guide us, that direct us, that show the framework of what we're going to do? And I think the simple answer for me is all the way back to the document that gave us birth. And it goes like this, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, these being life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that we are created equal. In that sense of equality, the greatest principle is that every human being and every American is equal to each other. One person is not more equal because of his net worth or because of his IQ or because of his ancestry or last name. That was a radical idea when those 56 signers put their names on that document, knowing that if their experiment in the government didn't work, they were going to die for it. Those are principles. Those are things that you'll live for, you'll die for. That sense that all of us have an essence of equality, and that the primary purpose of a government is to recognize that those rights did not come from government, they came from God. They're to be protected and then defined as the right to a life, the right to liberty, our freedom, to live our lives like we want to live them without government telling us how to do it, and ultimately not to be happy, but to have the pursuit of happiness. That's our principles.
And I take your statement. It is an interesting statement of the basis that we all believe in this country. But you started by saying, but we can change our policies. How often did you say?
Our policies often reflect what's going on at the time. For example, if the primary thing we are facing is war, then we're going to be talking about military size and military might. If we have a problem with illegal immigration, the number one issue right now might be securing the borders. I'm not saying we change our positions, but we change the policies in terms of the priority, but those principles don't change. The principles are still to make sure that we recognize the equality of each other and that we recognize where those rights come from and what those rights are.
Senator Thompson?
Everyone has kind of a wish list. I think it's most important, though, that a president of the United States understand that our principles, our first principles, are based on the Constitution of the United States. Understanding the nature of our government, the checks and the balances, the separation of powers that our founding fathers set up a long time ago. There's reason for that. They knew about human nature. They learned from the wisdom of the ages. They set the government up according to that. They set the powers out in the Constitution of the federal government. And they basically said, if the powers aren't delineated in this document, they don't exist. And then we got the 10th Amendment that says if they're not delineated, they belong to the people and to the states. That's fundamental to everything else. And then we grew from that. Principles such as a dollar belongs in the pocket of the person that earned it, unless the government can make a case that it can spend it better. You don't spend money that you don't have, and you certainly don't spend your grandchildren's money with debt that they're not at the table when the decision's been made to spend it.
I'm going to run out of time on this, but I want to come back to that point. Go ahead.
The president asks a very important question, and we should all come together, and we shouldn't have that many disagreements because we should be bound down by the Constitution. But the people in this country think we live in an age of relative ethics, is what they kind of have come to the conclusion of. Sure, profess to believe in the Constitution, but why have we gone to war since World War II without a declaration of war? Why do we have a monetary system that is not designed by the Constitution? Why do we have a welfare state running out of control, not designed by the Constitution? You can't pay lip service to the Constitution without obeying it. And we should have peace and prosperity. That should be our goal. We in foreign policy ought to have a golden rule. We ought to treat others as we would want others to treat us, and we don't treat others so fairly. We treat them like we're the bully, that we're the policeman of the world, and we're going to tell them to behave. If they don't listen to us, we bomb them. If they listen to us, we give them more money, and it's bankrupting this country because we don't live up to our principles. The principles are embedded in our Constitution.
Let me turn for the next few moments to health care. The Democrats have talked a lot about this, and they have spelled out some pretty specific health care plans. But what you propose, what you have talked about in terms of health care, in many ways represents a more basic change in the way health insurance would be obtained. A little background on that, ABC's medical editor, Dr. Tim Johnson.
In general, Republicans have criticized Democratic proposals for health care reform as radical expansions of the federal government's role. But many health care experts say that it is actually the Republicans' emphasis on individuals buying their own policies versus getting their insurance through employers that is a more radical change. And it raises concerns. Individual policies can be more expensive for the same coverage because of administrative overhead and sales costs. Group policies, like those provided by employers, can bargain with providers for lower costs and do a better job of monitoring quality. Medical professionals caution that individual insurance may sound good on paper, but it usually turns out to be very difficult for people on their own to find quality policies at the right cost. Charlie?
All right, Dr. Tim Johnson, thanks very much. We're the only industrialized nation in the world that doesn't insure all of our citizens. If we can afford $1 trillion war in Iraq, why can't we afford medical insurance for everybody? Governor, Mayor, Mr. Mayor?
The reality is that with all of its infirmities and difficulties, we have the best healthcare system in the world. And it may be because we have a system that still is, if not wholly, at least in large part, still private. To go in the direction that the Democrats want to go, much more government care, much more government medicine, socialized medicine, is going to mean a deteriorated state of medicine in this country. I mean, I said jokingly in one debate, if we go in the direction of socialized medicine, where will Canadians come for health care?
Mm-hmm. And by the way, do you all agree that we have the best health care system in the world?
Sure.
Now,
tell me when people get sick where they come to get health care.
I certainly have the best health care.
Charlie,
Charlie, that doesn't mean it shouldn't be improved. And I think that the notion of people buying their own private health insurance is a very good one, so long as a lot of them do it. Only 17 million Americans right now buy their own health insurance. If 50 million Americans were buying their own health insurance, because it would be just as tax advantageous to do it that way, and we had a health savings account, economists believe there'd be a 30 to 50% reduction in the cost of health insurance and quality would come up. The only thing that reduces cost and increases quality is a significant, dramatic, large consumer market, not government control.
You all have proposed free market, consumer-purchased insurance, and you all talk about giving tax deductions for buying insurance. Let me do a little math. The average family employer provided insurance, when the companies buy it, it's $13,000 a family. Now, you've talked about a $15,000 to $20,000 deduction, right, for people buying their own insurance. If you take a median income family of $62,000 in this country, you've just saved them $3,000 in their taxes. That doesn't come close to buying an insurance policy.
And next year, if you continue 10% inflation associated with it, it'll be even further away. And the next year after that, because the problem with health care in America is not the quality, it is the inflation. And in all due respect to your expert that we just saw, that he's talking about the wrong aspect of this issue. The right aspect of this issue is inflation. If we could get it under control and get it reduced so that health care costs are reasonable in America, then those people will be able
to get health care costs,
and they will be able to go out and choose their insurer anywhere in America, and they will be able then to get affordable health care in America. But we have to make the recipient of the health care more responsible. We have to have outcome-based results for health care. We have to emphasize wellness and fitness. One of the most disturbing things in America is the increase in diabetes, obesity, and high blood pressure amongst younger Americans. So we have to reward wellness and fitness.
Charlie,
and that way we will have a healthier nation, and we will have less health care costs. But again, you made a statement about European nations. They all get health care. Well, some people here in New Hampshire have been to Canada. I don't think they want that system.
A lot of people have ideas about health care and improving health care. We took the ideas and actually made them work in our state. As people in New Hampshire know, we put in place a plan that gets every citizen in our state health insurance, and it didn't cost us new money, and it didn't require us to raise taxes. What we found was it was less expensive or no more expensive to help individuals who had been uninsured buy their own private policy than it had been for us to give out free care at the hospital. And since we put our plan in place last April, We've now had 300,000 people who are uninsured sign up for this insurance, private insurance. And where the good doctor was wrong is that it's true the insurance companies don't want to sell policies to one person at a time. It's expensive. We established what we called a connector, a place where individuals could go to buy policies from any company, and that connector would in turn send their premiums on to those companies. So the economics of scale existed, and as a result of what we did, the premiums for health insurance for an individual buying insurance went from $350 a month to $180 a month, with lower deductibles and now with prescription drugs. The answer, I want to underline this. We don't have to have government take over health care to get everybody insured. That's what the Democrats keep on hanging out there. The truth is we can get everybody insured in a free market way. We don't need Hillary care or socialized medicine.
Charlie, you really answered the question. You answered it in your question, because you said